Sean Corley, I think it's fair to say that the weather we are experiencing at the moment is more like Christmas than Easter. And the government rightly decided to help farmers in the north because of the shocking inclement weather. And we have to realise that people are losing stock and that there is a crisis in farming in the north. And I welcome the decision to support farmers in the north on behalf of Fianna Fáil. But the reality is, of course, that farmers in the south are also experiencing huge challenges because of the weather. We had a very, very wet summer, and a lot of farmers failed to make silage or only got a very small amount of fodder saved last winter. It had been hoped we'd get a mild spring, but the opposite has happened, and we have an extremely cold spring with no growth. Farmers are facing dwindling supplies of fodder and are experiencing huge extra costs. And this is putting huge pressure on their cash flow. I have two questions that I'd like to ask the Taoiseach. The first one is, given the extremely harsh weather and the combination of last summer's very heavy rain that had a particular effect in the southern half of the country, and the very, very cold spring, is the government proposing to introduce emergency measures to assist farmers, and particularly dairy farmers, who don't even have the option of selling their stock? The second issue is that we welcome the announcement by the government to extend the fuel allowance by 1 week. But can I ask the government, in view of the continuing inclement weather, whether they're willing to review that on a weekly basis and to give an undertaking to the House here that the fuel allowance will be continued as long as this very cold weather continues? We know that we're running out of the stock of briquettes. We know there's huge pressure on people because of the cost of this very cold weather. And can you give me that assurance, Taoiseach?
Taoiseach, thank you.
Corley, well, there's no doubt that the current unseasonable weather conditions that we're experiencing are very difficult for farmers, and there have been some concerns expressed over the last few days as regards to cash flow issues and the availability of fodder. The harsh weather experienced over the past few weeks has been exacerbated by the problems caused by last year's wet summer, and some farmers are experiencing difficult conditions. In response to farmers' concerns, Minister Coveney has written to the banks to highlight the extreme challenges facing farmers as a result of the weather and to urge the financial institutions to take a flexible approach to dealing with short-term credit issues. It is important that financial institutions would take into consideration the fact that while the current difficulties may cause cash flow pressures for farmers, the overall outlook for the sector is favourable. Commodity prices remain high, and the positive expectations for dairy, beef and lamb prices mean that farmers should see improved markets return for their produce this year. In addition, Teagasc is providing specific weather-related advice and assistance to farmers to cope with the current adverse weather conditions. All Teagasc offices are taking phone calls from farmers. Agricultural advisors are equipped and ready to outline the options open to farmers facing difficulties and to make a plan that best suits their situation. Teagasc has also made extensive use of national and local media to provide farmers with advice and have coordinated with farm organisations, marts, local authorities, co-ops and other suppliers to provide targeted advice to all who need it. Advice for farmers on coping with fodder shortages has also been published, including guidelines to dairy and dry stock farmers for feeding this spring with little or no grass. I note that farm bodies have urged farmers to assess whether they have surplus fodder in stock and whether they are in a position to make some available to others in difficulty, and I echo this call to support those in need of assistance. Our colleagues in the north are also experiencing difficulty, as Deputy O'Keefe has said. Minister O'Neill requested assistance from Minister Shatter yesterday in his capacity as Minister for Defence for Irish Air Corps assistance in response to the animal welfare crisis being experienced in the north due to the severe weather in that region. And Minister Shatter agreed to the request that the Air Corps would deploy when requested by the northern authorities. Minister Coveney and his department will keep the situation under review and will act appropriately if there is further cause concern. And with regard to the issue of the fuel allowance, as Deputy O'Keefe knows, Minister Burton yesterday extended the fuel allowance for a further week because of the weather conditions, and she will keep the situation with regard to the fuel allowance under review in light of the prevailing weather conditions.
Thank you. Deputy O'Keefe, 1 minute. Thank you.
I welcome your announcement that she will keep the fuel allowance under review. I think it's very, very important, and it's very important to the people who depend on the fuel allowance. In relation to the farming situation, there's a Shan Uckle that says, Mar a chapel agus yawl fair. I think the English version is, live horse and you'll get grass. And that seems to be the policy of the government. A lot of words and no action. And the question I would have for you, do you believe that advice is going to feed the cattle? Your only solution seems to be more debt and more borrowing. A lot of farmers are borrowed to the level because of the crisis of the last year in relation to farming. They're borrowed as far as they can borrow. Is it the intention of the government, as was done in a similar situation in 1998, when Joe Walsh was Minister, is it your intention to introduce measures to assist farmers in this crisis situation and to ensure that they can continue to feed their livestock, which is vital for their livelihood and also vital for the welfare of the animals in question?
Thank you.
Well, I think Deputy O'Keefe, first of all, let me acknowledge the welcome that Deputy O'Keefe has given for the initiative that Minister Burton has taken with regard to the fuel allowance. I think we would all agree that as the weather conditions, if these very harsh weather conditions continue, that there has to be an appropriate response to that. With regard to the issue of farmers and fodder and feedstock, I think Deputy O'Keefe's difficulty is that Minister Coveney is already ahead of him on this and has already responded to the situation, has already taken initiatives. What I have suggested in terms of if there is surplus fodder available, surplus feedstock available, that might be released. That is very, very much in line with what the IFA have asked. I have here the IFA statement, which was issued yesterday, in which they ask that co-ops, feed mills and banks continue their support for their farmer customers and to do everything to ensure that adequate feed and cash flow is provided. And they have also, the IFA have also, something that Deputy O'Keefe seems to now deride, the IFA have also called on farmers to examine what fodder they have at the moment and if they have surplus to make it available to farmers in short supply. And that is the position that the Minister for Agriculture has taken. And it is,
What's all the rumbling about? Settle down. You're going on your holidays. Settle down.
I think Fianna Fáil is reduced to blaming the government for the bad weather.
Yeah.
Deputy MacDonald.
Got to Count Corla. Taoiseach, you will be aware that the new Croke Park agreement has been greeted with dismay by many within the public and civil service, but particularly by frontline workers. And not for the first time, we saw yesterday members of garda Síochána protesting the shattering cuts that they're experiencing outside government buildings. Taoiseach, can I say to you, that the attempt by government to silence dissent amongst rank-and-file Gardaí by disciplining 4 Garda sergeants who walked out of the AGSI annual conference in protest at Minister Shatter is utterly wrong. The Minister has treated rank-and-file Gardaí with nothing short of contempt. Last year we had the attempt by the Garda Commissioner, no doubt on the bidding of government, to forbid Gardaí from communicating with public representatives in relation to cutbacks. And this, of course, was rightly challenged by the GRA in the courts. You know and I know that morale amongst the Gardaí is at an all-time low. They are deeply disillusioned at the government cutback agenda, dressed up with labels such as smart policing and efficiencies. 140 Garda stations have been closed over the last 18 months. The number of Garda vehicles and Garda personnel have been significantly reduced. And that has had an effect in urban Ireland, but certainly many in rural communities are left increasingly isolated. And then to add to this, we have Croke Park 2 and pay cuts which disproportionately target frontline workers like Gardaí, like nurses and emergency personnel. So Taoiseach, how do you in all reality expect a depleted force, which to a man and a woman have been put now under huge operational pressure and personal financial pressure, to deliver on your so-called smart policing?
Taoiseach.
First of all, the terms of the Croke Park 2 agreement are currently the subject of a ballot among those unions who are a party to that agreement. And I think that all of us, including members of the opposition, should respect the right of individual members of their unions to make up their own minds about that agreement. They're perfectly capable of doing so without any advice whatever from Sinn Féin. Secondly, with regard to the issue of Garda disciplining, the government is not disciplining anybody. The matter of Garda discipline is a matter for the Garda Commissioner. It's not a matter for the Minister for Justice, not a matter for the government, and it should not be a matter for political debate and discussion or political interference. It is a matter for the Garda Commissioner, and it should be left with the Garda Commissioner. In respect of the issue of Garda vehicles, you're wrong again. The government has spent 9 million additional euro on the purchase of Garda vehicles. In respect of the effectiveness of our Garda Síochána, let me say straight away that our Garda Síochána do a superb job. The crime figures which will be made available later today will show that there is significant increases in the level of crime, which is a testament to the effect, or decreases in the level of crime, which is a testament to the commitment and to the work of the Garda Síochána. And finally, may I welcome Sinn Féin's newly found support for the Garda Síochána.
Deputy MacDonald.
Well, Taoiseach, you say that you respect the rights of trade union members to make their own determination on Croke Park 2. I mean, that's really just code for killing off any debate or criticism of this very flawed agreement here in this chamber. That's as obvious, that's as plain as day. If you're so anxious and so committed to respecting the views of public sector workers, of respecting their right to make a determination on this agreement and the cutbacks contained in it, how is it so that the Minister of your government is so hell-bent on silencing members of the Garda Síochána, be they rank-and-file Gardaí or up to the level of sergeant, if they are critical of the strategy pursued by this government? Of course, the particularities of any disciplinary issue with the Gardaí is a matter for the Commissioner. Nobody is contesting that. But we have a real problem now. And the problem is this, Taoiseach. You have a government, and in particular a Minister for Justice, who is vindictive towards An Garda Síochána. And all of the honeyed words about the good work that these men and women do counts for nothing.
Question, please.
If you are intent not alone on cutting their resources professionally, but also cutting their means of providing for their families. And then to add insult to injury, you don't want them to open their mouths or to raise a voice of criticism. That is simply wrong. Other public servants have set out very clearly their opposition to this new programme of cutbacks under Croke Park 2, and they are entitled. The Gardaí are also entitled to defend their resources and to defend themselves and their families. So, Taoiseach, can you have a word with the Minister for Justice and perhaps diplomatically advise him that it is in nobody's interests for him to pursue a vindictive position in respect of the Gardaí, who should not be silenced. Yes, they need to be disciplined and effective. They should not be silenced as citizens of this state.
When we talk about respect, I'd also ask people to respect the chair. When people call their time, would they please adhere to the rules? Thank you. Just show respect for whoever is in the chair. Thank you.
Well, first of all, with regard to Sinn Féin's comments on the Croke Park Agreement, of course, this is nothing new, because you were already out on the plinth condemning the agreement before it was even published, before you had even read it. You were out. You were out on that plinth and denouncing it and attacking it and condemning it. So you know there is nothing. There's nothing new. There's nothing new in that. Your position on the Croke Park Agreement has nothing whatever to do with its contents or the people to whom it applies. It is all to do with political opportunism, whatever is good for Sinn Féin. Secondly, with regard to the Minister for Justice, the Minister for Justice isn't silencing anybody. Minister for Justice and the government are perfectly willing to listen and to hear the points of view and the representations that are made to it by the Garda representative bodies, the Garda Representative Association, the Association of Garda Sergeants and Inspectors. That is the right. Where we have a disciplined force, there has to be a channel of communication on behalf of the members of the force. That is done through the representative bodies. It will, of course, be the case from time to time that there will be disagreement between the representative bodies and the Minister. That happens in every area of activity. It is their job to represent their members and to do so effectively. The issue of discipline in the Garda Síochána is not a matter for the Minister for Justice, it's not a matter for the government, it's a matter for the Garda Commissioner. And while we're on the subject of silencing, while we're on the subject of silencing Gardaí, can you tell me how many Gardaí's voices were silenced by your organisation permanently?
Deputy Matty McGrath, please. Deputy Matty McGrath, please. Sorry, to hear me, I call Deputy Matty McGrath. I call Deputy Matty McGrath. Would you please allow the man make his point? Thank you.
I'm calling on you, Taoiseach, today, especially reflecting on what we're hearing from tallies in Meath East, to be the sensible voice in this government and to try and intervene and in this unseemly mess that has descended into shambles with the situation regarding Garda Síochána and their situation vis-à-vis the Commissioner and indeed Minister Shatter. This is a totally unacceptable situation, and I believe it has damaged morale to a great degree, and it's very unfair to see so many Gardaí yesterday outside the Taoiseach's office, something they don't want to do. They want to be serving their community, but they're forced to be here. This Minister, and you Minister, I'm glad you're here, you've not shown any semblance of understanding, appreciation, or dare I say any modicum of respect for the members of Garda Síochána, the men and women who protect us all on a daily basis. And Minister, I have reliable information to say that you have had a number of run-ins and disputes with members of Garda Síochána protecting your house and your home.
Sorry, Deputy, don't
I want
be
to clear up.
introducing personal matters
I want to
into
clear up
this.
once and for all, Minister, that this ID. If I can,
No personal matters.
I'm
here.
not speaking fact, Count Crowley. I'm putting fact on the record. This minister has shown total disdain for the Gardaí. And I want to kill the lie that the Gardaí walked out on Croke Park. The Garda Síochána have no rights under any negotiations at Croke Park or otherwise. They're there listening to SIP2 and Impact and other people to tell them what's going on. They're like bridesmaids at a wedding. That's what they're like. One could be forgiven at this stage that we're living in a democracy. It's more like Russia or some kind of a military junta that we're living in, where 4 senior officers of the Gardaí have been summoned today. They have 130 years service between them. Been summoned to Templemore. They're the only people going to be in Templemore because you've closed it, you've laid waste to it, Minister, in spite of your promises, and they're going to be disciplined. There's already a disciplinary procedure in Garda Síochána, a very strict one, for dealing with matters like this. A very strict one, where they are, and they have to pay monetary fines and whatever else. For what's their crime? For representing their members in a desperate plea for somebody to listen to their situation.
Question, please.
Listen to the situation. Yes, my question is, Taoiseach, is when are we going to have a situation set up here, an independent mediator, or indeed, like they have in other countries, a board set up between the Minister and the Commissioner and Garda Síochána to depoliticise the situation between the ministers of all hue. But this minister has shown no respect whatsoever.
Thank you.
And my question is, one of my serious questions is, has this Minister for Justice refused members of Garda Síochána to use his toilet facilities in his own home? That's my question to the Tánaiste staff. Well, you can laugh if you like. It's a fact, Minister.
Sorry, Deputy.
Are they going to have to bring a commode and use it outside their houses?
Personal issues
He's
here.
taking the cars off him. He's taking the cars off him.
Thank you. Will you please resume the seat? Tánaiste, thank you. Thank you.
And that's the Tánaiste.
Thank you.
Will you intervene
Resume your seat.
and have the senior advice of government and respect the Garda Síochána and have them respected and have their job respected, please?
Tánaiste.
That's the issue of the day, is it?
Well, if we ever needed a demonstration as to why the management of the Garda Síochána, matters relating to discipline in the Garda Síochána, should not become a matter of political debate, we've just had it. The issue of the management of the Garda Síochána and day-to-day deployment of the Garda Síochána, issue of discipline in the Garda Síochána is a matter for the Garda Commissioner. And the Garda Commissioner enjoys the support of the government in doing his job, and I hope he enjoys the support of the members of the House. Deputy McGrath misunderstands the process by which the Garda Síochána, prison officers, members of the defence forces, members of disciplined forces in the state engage in negotiation. The Croke Park negotiations, or any public service negotiations, involves the trade unions, first of all, the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, representing the broad range of trade unions, engaged in discussions with the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. And there's a separate and parallel set of discussions which parallel those negotiations which are in place for the representatives of the Garda Síochána, the representatives of prison officers and the representatives of the defence forces. In respect of the negotiations that have just been completed, the representatives of the prison officers and the representatives of the defence forces continued with the negotiations and participated in them. The Garda representative bodies decided, and that's their call, they decided to withdraw from those negotiations. There is already a conciliation and arbitration scheme that is in place with regard to issues that arise in the Garda Síochána. The government, the minister, is open to discussion. The minister has had discussions with the Garda representative bodies. The government is open to having discussions with the Garda representative bodies in respect of the pay agreement. The representative bodies of the Garda decided to withdraw from those talks. That is their decision. That is their right to make that decision if they choose to do so. They did do so. I think it's regrettable that they did so, but that is the call that they themselves made.
Thank you. Deputy McGrath, 1 minute. Thank you.
Tánaiste, for a man that has been to life in trade union activity, you know and I know that the Garda Síochána do not have full negotiating rights at these talks. They're depending on the messages they get back and maybe on a 2-hourly or 3-hourly or half-daily base from SIP2 or Impact, or indeed from Liam Doran of the Nurses Association. And that is the fact. No point in muddying the waters. I'm saying to you, why are the Gardaí not allowed to be involved in the new insolvency legislation we're passing? They can't be involved in that either. There are perimeters. We understand that totally, and I accept that. But the Garda Síochána are being treated with disdain by this minister on a continual basis. And he stooped to a new load this morning. Minister, any of us here, we all have wives and families, but to introduce your wife into the situation this morning, into the front line of defence, will it be your children next, Minister? What next are you going to do to try and damage the reputation of the proud force that have served this country so well since the inception of the state, and that we all support? You have not supported them in anything. Mealy-mouthed words that you say that you are supporting them. I'm asking you, Taoiseach, will you put in place an independent arbitrator for the sake of all of us and for the sake of good relations to try and sort out this mess? And will you consider your government setting up a board, a management board in Garda Síochána, as they have across the water and other areas, and indeed Northern Ireland, a buffer zone between politics and in Garda Síochána, and not be throwing snide or bribes across the house at each other. Have an independent board. Don't have a commissioner who I believe is compromised by his own continuing service beyond his pension age, unlike other people who took court cases not to do so. I believe he's in a compromised position. And I do ask your Minister, finally, why have you such a prejudice against Garda Síochána?
Taoiseach, thank you.
Well, first of all, I would ask Deputy McGrath to reflect now, and to reflect seriously on the personalised attack that he has just made on the Garda Commissioner. The Garda Commissioner is charged with the management, the running of the Garda Síochána, and he should have the support of every member of this House. And, you know, whatever the political moment may be, it doesn't serve either Dáil Éireann well, or it doesn't serve you, Deputy McGrath, well, to make a personal attack like you have just made on the Garda Commissioner. And I think frankly that you should withdraw that. Secondly, with regard to the issue of arbitration, there already is a conciliation and arbitration scheme in place for the Garda Síochána. On the issue of insolvency legislation, the Minister for Justice assures me that there is no difficulty with the Gardaí being part of an insolvency arrangement, and all of these issues are issues that can be discussed between the Garda representative bodies and the Minister for Justice. That's the way in which difficulties are resolved, is by discussion, by negotiation, and where issues cannot be resolved, as I said, there is a conciliation and arbitration scheme.
Thank you. That completes